Starting your week the right way, come into the FPL Green Room with me, Gianni and her, Holly Shan.
Coming up in today's show, well, FPL is live with some big rule changes for this coming season. The hugest one of all is the fact that you can have 5 free transfers banked at any one time, which is going to completely change how we approach the game. We've also got the mystery chip, which has been teased. More info on that to come. And a big change in the bonus point system as well. I'll be crunching the numbers on that in the numbers game. And it is a bumper episode drop. This is our first episode, but there's 2 for you to get today because the second episode is live for you now as well, looking at our current drafts.
Can't wait to see those drafts. Bit of housekeeping, guys. This pod is available on all platforms, so make sure you're hitting those buttons, follow and rate, and obviously leave a review as well. But we do have in the description to this pod our new mini league, so another button for you to hit and come and join us as you can hopefully go head to head with me and Holly. Holly, did I beat you last season? Did I?
Do we have to mention that so early, Gianni?
I know, we're only a minute into our new pod and here I am gloating. But no, seriously, Holly, what have we had in the mailbag already this week?
Yeah, so I did say when you leave that 5-star review, drop a question in. And we've had a question already, Keen from Shand11, big coincidence there, who has asked, I would love to know when Gianni's top knot will be returning. Big love for the top knot, clearly.
Oh, Holly, I mean, you might be my TV wife and perhaps you liked it. I don't know. You can tell us. But my actual wife really disliked it. It was grown out of COVID. Do you remember when we couldn't get to the hairdressers? And then it just got that awkward length. And I thought, do you know what? Let's just run with it. When am I ever going to be able to have a guilt-free top knot because I'm not leaving the house? But with regret, we were then getting called onto the fantasy show at the time. It was called the FPL show by the Premier League. So I was like, can I really go on TV with this haircut? And I remember speaking to my wife and my mum and a couple of my mates. They were like, yeah, do it. You look like a footballer. I didn't look like a footballer. I looked like a receding middle-aged 30s dad. And it therefore lasted a couple of years during COVID and then went. So I don't think the top knot will be back, Holly.
Well, you know, I've heard the word on the street is that you keep getting offered free hair transplants. So, you know, if you are receding, then you can maybe take them up on that offer.
Honestly, I couldn't believe my DMs on Instagram. Like I did this video, like an Instagram reel on hair transplants, the best footballer hair transplants. And guys, Mo Salah is currently going for a hair transplant. He's going to look really good. Not everyone turns out with the Wayne Rooney hair transplant, which doesn't go so well. And I looked at this and then I got a DM in my inbox saying, we'll give you a discount code if you can push people towards our clinic. And I was like, I don't really want to be representing this Turkish clinic. I know nothing about. Like, I need to do some due diligence here. So yeah, I avoided the promo on that one. Okay, guys, enough hair chat. Let's get on to some FPL, shall we? Holly, we had big announcements the day before the launch. What did you make of those announcements?
I mean, the headline has to be the fact that we're getting these 5 free transfers. I think if you think about the changes we've had in FPL over the seasons, we've not had very many. I think when the chips arrived, I think that was 2015-16, that shook up the game, but it kind of, the chips shake up the game in certain periods of the season where you've got the blanks and double game weeks. But having up to 5 free transfers banked is fundamentally going to change every single decision we make every single game week. So I think it's great, to be honest. I think it's good for the engaged managers because they can really strategize with having the opportunity to bank so many transfers. And it's great for the casuals as well, which is good for the game because, you know, miss the deadline, not set their team for a couple of weeks. A lot at the moment would just drop off. Whereas now it's going to be like, oh, well, I've got 3, 4, 5 free transfers now. So I can get back to it, play a bit of catch up if I have missed a few deadlines.
Yeah, so true. I remember playing Serie A fantasy last season and I played that as a kind of casual manager. It's how I used to play FPL, 10 minutes on a Friday, making my transfers. And sometimes if you're away, you forget the deadline. And 3 or 4 times last season I did. But I remember accumulating those transfers, coming back off a holiday and being like, oh, it feels like I've got a wild card. Got 3, 4 transfers here. So it's so good for those less engaged managers. But for you and I, Holly, this just means more strategy, which I think we absolutely welcome. It gives us more decisions to make. It's almost like a stick or a twist each week at times. And my automatic response to the rule, which I was really surprised to see, by the way, I think it's quite radical to go from 2 to 5. It's not like they've just increased it by 1 or 2. was straight away I thought, does this affect our strategy with our benches? And I remember seeing all the 4.5 defender price reveals and thought straight away, maybe we forget the 4 million bench fodder on as our third defender, our fifth defender, but our third bench option usually, and go for a 4.5, spend the extra. And the reason being is, if we're trying to accumulate these transfers up to 3 or 4 in the bank, then maybe when our player loses form or his place in the team, or maybe when he gets injured or suspended, rather than knee-jerk sell that player, which you'd usually do, you might go, no, do you know what? I'm just going to bench him because I'm trying to hold these transfers as long as possible and accumulate them. Therefore, having more bench options come in, I think, would be favourable. And we've been spoiled for choice with 4.5 defenders this year. So actually, I think that's probably something a route I'll take, an extra 4.5 defender than a 4.0 defender.
Yeah, and to be fair, that this rule change kind of came out of nowhere. There was lots of speculation, wasn't there, about, what could the changes be? I've not played the Serie A fantasy game, so I've never come across this kind of as a format in any fantasy game before. Is there anything that you learned from playing that game that you can bring across? Give us some inside info, because I still haven't really digested exactly how it is going to change my gameplay.
No one. I don't think anyone can until they've played it, because we can all speculate, but until we're in that position, our decisions will of course differ from content creator to content creator as well, which will be really fascinating to watch. The template will be ripped up because of it too. Also, the template will be ripped up because of dynamic pricing. Well done, FPL. But yeah, to answer your question, Holly, I mean, it allowed me to move to more premium assets when I wanted to, because there was more flexibility with, say, 3 free moves. So I'd reluctantly take a 3-week transfer. Let's say I accumulate 2 free transfers, a -4. We often refer to it as a mini wildcard, but it only happens a couple of times a season. Well, I saw this happening every month for me in Serie A fantasy last season. And it meant that I could go to those sort of high upside, riskier picks. So I think this also favours managers that maybe want to target specific fixture runs or short-term punts for 1-week punts to offer high upside. So yes, we're not just talking Haaland and Salah here, but we're also presented with an array of sort of 8.5 to 10.5 million midfielders this year. And I wonder if we want to jump on them for only a week or two, we'll be able to, because we'll be able to move our budgets round and our price points round per position. Because historically we say, cover the price points and then you can make easy moves. We don't need to cover price points anymore, because we can accumulate loads of transfers and then just rip those price points up. Yeah,
and I never loved the whole price point thing.
I hated it.
But I think it's still going to be at the 4 in the first few weeks of the season, isn't it? Because the first 3 game weeks, you're not going to have that stack of banked transfers, and there will be managers that really want to spend those first few weeks accumulating them. I don't quite know how viable that's going to be, because August is, really difficult to predict because the transfer window's still open. You've got players that have had busy summers that are maybe late returning to pre-season. Yeah. So you can't quite cover everything. You may think that a certain team are going to play in a certain style with players playing in specific positions, and then it doesn't come to light. So I think in terms of planning fixtures and blocks of fixtures, that's maybe something that will come when we get into the season. I think in August, it probably won't change my gameplay too much in the early weeks of the season. And it's that no Haaland seems to be the big conversation at the moment. And you've got to pivot between Chelsea away game week 1, Ipswich home game week 2. We're not going to have bank transfers. But if we decide no Haaland and then after game week 1 think, oh no, we've made a huge mistake. So there's that factor to bear in mind as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking we can't look past the sort of early season routine that seems to happen every year, which is a ton of transfer activity in the first few weeks, which sees a lot of players rocket in price. And those that are interested in team value, and so many of us are, we often want to jump on those early season bandwagons quite early. How do we jump on those early season bandwagons if we're trying to save 3-4 transfers? Well, you can't. So again, do we resort to type and play FPL how we used to for August, and then we start thinking as the season progresses about building up more transfers? Or are we fairly stubborn with the new rule and go, actually, no, I'm going to stick to my guns. I want to make the most of this new rule, and I want a mini wildcard in game week 4 or 5. I'm not going to chase that early season bandwagon, which doesn't always pay off, but those players going up in price matter to some more than others. I don't think it really, really hits me, and I'm probably quite slow to react to some of them because I don't care as much about team value as some, but that will be an interesting experiment. And the other big thing that happens every season is by game week 3, 4, 5, we see a ton of wild cards. Will we still see that? Because those that haven't needed to make a transfer ahead of game week 2 and maybe ahead of game week 3 will feel like they're wildcarding in game week 4 anyway.
I think it's going to be impossible to bank the transfers in those first few weeks because of all those reasons that we've just mentioned. So I think there will be a play in doing that wild card early because we know it's a volatile period of the season. And then hopefully if you play a wild card, maybe sometime between game week 4 and game week 7, I think we get an international break between game week 3 and 4 and then another one between game week 7 and 8. If you play a wild card in that window, then that could set you up for that nitty gritty of the season. And you don't need to think, oh, use my wild card early because you should be in a good shape by that point. You've gathered all that information from pre-season, who's settled in their lineups, who's on set pieces, that you can then use the banked transfers to make big changes and look at those fixture runs. I think that's how I'm going to play it. But it's like you say, it's impossible until we get into it to know absolutely for sure.
Yeah, it might be easier to play it your way, knowing you probably own Haaland as well. That might make it easier because those that go without Haaland, again, will be thinking maybe of knee-jerking him in because they go, oh, he's got Ipswich at home. I think if you go without Haaland, you're probably backing that you're not going to own him in game week 2. Otherwise, it's just, you've wasted all your pre-season planning time. There is a new chip, Holly, the mystery chip. We've been told we will learn more about it ahead of January and we'll be able to use it from January. We might be waiting till December till we know more about it. Does it make us more reluctant to use our other chips, knowing we don't quite know the full picture in FPL this season yet? Like, for example, if you go, oh, I've got a really good bench boost in October and there's going to be fewer doubles this week, or I've got a really nice triple captain punt I want to go with in November, I'm more reluctant to pull the trigger on those chips. Not that I ever really do, because I always leave my chips to the end of the season, but even more so now because we don't quite know the full picture with this mystery chip and it could change the way we use other chips.
Yeah, exactly. Because a lot of our chip planning in previous seasons, we tend to play the chips back to back and in little clusters, don't we? So having it kind of dangling there, and it's just there, isn't it? You go on the pick page on the website and the mystery chip's there and you're thinking, well, what is it? What is it going to do? Do the Premier League even know what the mystery chip's going to be? It's just a weird situation, isn't it? I'm not sure if they know what the mystery chip is yet, or maybe they've got a plan of what they want it to be, but they don't know technically how to build it into the game yet. There'll be something like that. I think this season I was planning on being a little bit more flexible with the chips, given that we're expecting less blank and double game weeks because the FA Cup 5th round and quarterfinals have their own scheduled weekend. So we're not going to get big blank game weeks for that. However, having the banking your transfers new rule, it's kind of like it's wiped the slate clean and now I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Do you feel like you've got a plan?
I don't know. I think I'll just be holding all my chips as I always do, but with fewer blanks and doubles, it does make you think if you have that really good week on a bench boost, do you go earlier? And there's been people, I've had a few YouTube comments of people being like, oh, should I bench boost game week 1? Now we have this conversation every season, but maybe there's a slightly more argument to consider it this year. It's never been a tactic for me, and there's always surprise selections in game week 1. It's a terrible idea, but I just wonder if people maybe are going to be more hesitant for that reason. But I'd like to think from the Premier League, whatever chip does come in January, it doesn't affect too much of our forward planning. I don't want to forward plan loads and then get to the January and go, I've now got to rip that up and start again. And I think that would punish engaged managers. And maybe you're right, it's a technical thing, and we know from the Premier League, and you and I, Holly, have worked with them for years. And of course we hear rumors on stuff, and it was well documented last year they wanted to introduce this new game, FPL Challenge. It was spoken about in the media, and that there was going to be this extension or slightly different game that the Premier League were considering. It didn't come out till the spring, and that was purely a technical thing. Like, I'm sure the Premier League wanted that to come out earlier because it was spoken about in public that they were hoping it'd be ready for the start of last season. Then it was like, oh, maybe it'll be a few months down the line, and it took them a long time. And I think with this chip, it's probably I'm the least technical person ever, but I should think these things take a lot of planning.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I've just thought about just while we've been discussing this, with the bench boost, we know that you can't play 2 chips in 1 week. You can't wildcard and bench boost, but you could have 5 free transfers banked and use all of them to settle for a bench boost.
Oh, nice.
That could be really nice.
Yeah, of course you can. And when you use your chip, you can carry your transfers now as well, right? That was another tweak, which again is quite nice, because sometimes I've wildcarded quite a few times, or not wildcarded quite a few times when I've already had 2 free moves, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to wildcard because I don't want to waste that precious free transfer that I built up the week before. So now that doesn't matter either. So yeah, it's really interesting with the bench boost point though. That will be one to monitor. Definitely, because so many times we take hits ahead of a bench boost, which seems so counterintuitive, but yeah, we won't need to do that anymore. And taking hits for, a second goalkeeper that's going to get 2 points is ridiculous anyway. But we do it and we fall in the same traps. I guess the most technical element of the changes, Holly, is the BPS though, isn't it? Because there's 32 metrics of the bonus point system, and I love it. People complain about the bonus point system till the clouds come home, but actually it's transparent. If you know the 32 metrics, you pick players accordingly. It's way better than the old man in the stand picking man of the match, player of the match as they used to. How outdated is that? So this is good. 32 metrics. Well, now it's 36 metrics. There's 4 new ones and they've edited one of them, which makes it more transparent than ever. And I think it's fascinating with these changes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I never really sweat too much on the bonus point system. You sound like you're way more into it than me. I wouldn't have known it.
Favorite part of FPL. I've done pods on the BPS. I've written articles just on the 32 metrics, and I'm not a statty person, but the bonus points during games, I'm even checking on the app during games. I'll watch a game and be like, oh, great. Diaz has just made a clearance. I get an extra plus whatever. And I'll be updating live BPS during gameplay. It's a bit of a weird obsession I've got.
Yeah, it does sound like it. And given that I'm going to be leading on the numbers game aspect of the pods when we get into the season, you're the biggest geek when it comes to this. But there we go. So I guess the headline is that a shot on target will now be worth 2 BPS. A foul 1 will be worth 1 BPS. So they're going to change the way we look at certain attackers. So the key stats I've found, I've done a little bit of research. So the shots on target is the big one. And this kind of justifies why Haaland's gone up by a whole million, because he was top last season for shots on target with 59. Salah not far behind him on 56. And then making up the top 10, we had Foden, Watkins, Palmer, Isak, Jackson, Bruno and Son. So the kind of big names in FPL, those premium players, are going to be able to accumulate those BPS more quickly. And then on the fouls 1 side, Bruno G from Newcastle United, for some reason, seemed to be the highest here, 108. Few others of note: Saka, 69 fouls 1, Foden 60, Gordon 67, Maddison 74, João Pedro 60. I've just tried to pull out a few players that I've kind of seen floating around in some drafts so far there.
Bruno G, the highest for most fouled. I'm shocked at that. 108. That's huge compared to likes of Foden and Saka in the 60s and Gordon in the 60s. But yeah, the shots on target is big, +2. And we have to remember with the BPS, you're competing with your teammates often, as well as with the other team. And the reason Haaland can struggle in the bonus points is he is punished for things like being offside. He's punished for missing big chances. And he does a lot of those things, but now he's rewarded not only for his goals and any creative work he does, but he's also rewarded for a shot on target, as he should be. So 59 times last season, that's decent. In games gone by, years gone by, we've looked at Salah and Haaland, and I've always felt with these two, because they're wasteful and they're offside a lot and they don't do much in terms of team input, they lose out in the BPS and they often need 2 returns to guarantee bonus points. Now we might only need 1 return from Haaland to guarantee bonus, and we might only need 1 return from Salah to guarantee bonus. Also, it's worth noting the defenders in their teams, well, they could be slightly punished in the BPS because they're going to get -4 for every goal they concede now. So again, when we talk about competing with your teammates, if the teammate needs to keep a clean sheet to have a chance, of course they do. But yeah, -4 for every goal conceded is quite strong, especially if you're looking at sort of budget picks.
Yeah, exactly. And we've seen in in years gone by, you'll get a game that's like a 1-1 with like a penalty for one team that's been converted and then an own goal. And then it just seems random who gets the BPS, but it tends to be that, you know, if you've got a goalkeeper that's made a lot of saves or, you know, a defender that's been, you know, within the points for things like those goal line clearances and whatever, that they're accumulating those points. But that might change things. I think in terms of how we choose our goalkeepers, it's going to be quite interesting bearing in mind these little adjustments. Oh, and by the way, I did quite like this one. That a goalkeeper used to get 6 points for a goal. It's now up to 10. Now, I think only 4 goalkeepers have ever scored in the history of the Premier League.
Oh, yeah.
But still, I think it's a nice bonus to have when that does happen again. I think Alisson was the last one a few years back. I think it's a nice little introduction there as well. But I do
Same
feel
as a
like
defender at +6 feels so wrong. Like rewarding a goalkeeper the same as a defender for a goal has felt, how have we got away with that? +10 feels bang on.
Exactly. But I do feel like that shakes up how you choose your goalkeepers, because normally I tend to think of general routes to points, because if you've got a goalkeeper on a team that concede a lot of shots on their goal, then they're going to accumulate the saves quicker, but it is going to be harder for them to keep the clean sheets, but they can get the bonus. Whereas if we're punishing them for goals conceded more, I do feel like that might not be the play. We need to look for a goalkeeper that does give us higher clean sheet potential than a save potential. So I feel like I'm picking goalkeepers blind at the moment in FPL, and I could go anywhere from a 4.5 to a 5.5.
Yeah, and the rotating 4.5s versus the 5 set and forget. Again, I think when we do our first draft, we'll be listening to 2 slightly different approaches on goalkeepers between us as well, which is going to be cool to just. I'm just thinking of the goals scored from goalkeepers, because this is a league. In league football, you don't get goalkeepers scoring because you don't get them going up set pieces, because every point in the league matters and goal difference can matter as well. So even if you're losing a game, you don't necessarily send the goalkeeper up. In cup football, we see it. I was going to say we see it all the time, but it feels like we see goalkeepers, of course, going up way more for set pieces in knockout football. So shame in the Premier League, we miss out on that. But I would love nothing more than a +10 for a goalkeeper goal. I can't see that happening for a long time again in the Premier League. But yeah, pretty cool to know.
Yeah. One other thing that I picked out as well on the shots on target, I just had a look at who the top defenders were for shots on target for last season. Have you got any guesses who could be in there?
I mean, I'd like to think fullbacks, but then I'm thinking headers counts as like an attempt on target. And the guys that win loads of headers, probably Gabriel and Van Dijk, are 2 beasts from set pieces. Is it one of them?
Yeah, so Van Dijk's joint top. Gabriel's in there as well. Level with Vardiol at the top, 14 shots last season. Vardiol wasn't headed though. He was providing great service, wasn't he? As more of a left winger at times.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how City shape up this season and whether Vardiol's going to be quite so high. We've seen Grealish is already in pre-season training, so maybe we see a little bit of a shift. Question marks over Alvarez and his future as well. So something to keep an eye on. But yeah, Vardiol is up there. We had Matty Cash with 13 shots on target. Dunk and Porro both on 12. Porro's one that was maybe going to be punished a little bit in other respects in terms of the goals conceded, because Spurs did concede a lot of goals last season, but he is getting the shots on target. Romero, Cher, White and Anderson in the top 10 there as well.
Nice, loving that. Yeah, Porro is an interesting one. He was so popular at times last season, and he did do well for attacking returns. But yeah, surprise. Anderson there with 8 is 4.5 million, which is a nice little find.
So we're going to have this feature at the end of every pod, and it is the parenting moment of the week, because when me and Gianni are in the FPL Green Room before on Sky Sports News, we end up chatting about FPL, but also about our kids. So, Gianni, what's been your parenting moment of this week?
Oh God! I mean, I hope to bring you some good stories in the next in this season, and I hope to give you some parenting hacks, some success stories. But actually, mine's more of a horror story this week, and I expect it will continue that way for a while. We've been trying to do that fairly healthy eating with Gaia. Like she turned 2, so she's eating quite a lot. of all different foods now. And at nursery, she has a ton of junk. So we're like, let's make some homemade ice creams because they're full of sugar anyway. So let's do it's like a fruit sorbet. So it's strawberries, mango, banana, blended. You freeze them. You buy these stick things off Amazon. It's like a stick within a compartment that you put into the freezer. It comes out as like perfect lolly. So Gaia's got a friend Bud round yesterday. They're in the garden. It's nice and sunny, and they're enjoying their lollies. Don't think anything of it. And she's absolutely loving life. Like she's like, I've got ice cream. It's a lolly, but we go with ice cream. And yum, yum, yum. And it's a bit messy around her face. So we do the old baby wipe trip, which we always do the baby wipes. You always need them on hand. Without a second thought, and she's naked, she's just wearing her nappy because it's so hot. We let her inside, and then she's like, "Can we watch TV?" Like, I'm like, "Yeah, go on then. Let's watch TV because you've had a really eventful day." She's stuck to the sofa because she's so sticky from all of that like sweet, sugary, fruity drip that ended up on her chest. So she's like on the sofa, stuck to it, and it's just sticky mess. And I was just like, Cam, I was thinking, I need help here. This is more than my 2 baby wipes can go with. So I'm calling the wife for support.
Straight dunk in the bath.
Honestly, it was like time just to go. Yeah, it's definite bath night, and we try and bath her at least 5 times a week. Like not every night. That was a definite extra hot and soapy water bath night. Oh yeah, so that'll teach me with the homemade lollies. Although, yeah, maybe just clean her before she comes inside next time.
Yeah, 2 baby wipes. Get a flannel. That'd be my advice.
I like that. Well, with your 2 kids, you're well versed with this. All the mistakes you make with the first, you rectify with the second, don't you?
Yeah, something like that.
Nice. Okay. Well, look, we'll be bringing you stories of parenthood and, of course, who we're seeing in the green room for future weeks as well. Some famous footballers we've met over the years, Holly. So I'm sure we've got some stories to tell there for future episodes as well. But look, the next episode is hot off the press. We'll be talking about our drafts, and Holly, I know both of us have been spending a lot of time over our drafts, so I'm looking forward to our listeners being able to check that episode out straight away and hopefully joining our mini league. Remember, there is a link in the description. If you want the code, it is 139793.
Yeah, and make sure that you leave that 5-star review and ask us those questions. Get that behind the scenes gossip direct. See you back here in the green room next Monday morning.